Okay. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Okay, the hour is 9 o'clock. It is Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. My name is Drew Fries. I'm the Chair of Transportation Committee. I'd like to welcome everybody here today. Could I have a roll call, please?
Iqbal,
Present.
Berman,
Berman's here.
Kenyon,
Here.
Caius,
Caius present.
Kobe,
Kobe's here.
Wojnicki, Martin,
Martin present.
Pirog, Shepro,
Shepro present.
Froz.
Raz
We
here.
have a quorum.
Okay, and I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes from December 21st, 2021 and January 18th, 2022.
Kenyon would move that.
Moved by Kenyon, second by
Caius.
Iqbal. Mr. Caius?
Yes, I'm sorry, for discussion?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I have a question about the December minutes on item 9G. It was a resolution approving Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority Easy Pass Interoperability Hub Third-Party Beneficiary Agreement. It has, I believe, in the draft minutes that I received, a aye vote from me, and that, according to my notes, is incorrect. I wasn't able to get online to listen to the minutes, but according to my notes, I voted no on that, and I would expect that that's the case.
Okay, per your text to me, we have reviewed that and the change has been made.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
sir.
that is corrected. Any other discussion or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the two different minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign.
Roll call?
I'm sorry, roll
We have
call.
to have roll
Thank you.
call. Point of order, sorry, sir.
Mr. Kenyon, motion.
Yeah, Mr. Kenyon motion, Mr. Iqbal, Dr. Iqbal seconded. So roll call, please.
Berman, Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kobe,
Kobe, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Froz.
Braz, yes. Minutes are approved. Item 3, public comment. Is there anyone here today that would like to speak on any of our items today? Or online? Anybody online? Seeing none, we'll move on to the finance report. Tom?
Well, you have the finance report in front of you, both from the finance department, expenditures and revenues. And then Ms. Hopkinson has also her typical report. And if you have any questions, staff would be glad to answer those questions.
Okay, if there's no questions for Tom, we'll move on to item 5, maintenance report. Back to Tom.
Again, the maintenance report is in front of you. Our standard winter operations are ongoing. There's also the salt usage and the amount of times out that we've been out so far this year. It's a little bit less salt usage, as well as also the number of times that we've been out this season. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Tom? Seeing none. we'll
Copy,
move on.
please.
Mr. Copey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, I had met a surveyor out on Galligan Road, up Freeman and up Binney, doing some work on behalf of Kane County. Is that in regards to an improvement study?
Most likely, we are out there moving forward with the 2 intersections out there, Galligan Freeman and Galligan Benny.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'll, if you don't mind, I'll make a report. I'll keep it to the locals and keep it brief. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments for Tom? Okay, if not, we'll move on to 5B, our first resolution. This is approving several new and renewal adopt a highway applicants. Motion in a second. Moved
Monique
by
moves.
Ms. Monique, second by Dr. Iqbal. Comments or questions? We have quite a group, actually 5 new and 6 renewals, so total of 11. So we appreciate all the public interest in this program.
Yeah.
Ms.
just a
Wodnicki?
Quick comment. There was an article in Kane Connects regarding this. It might have been in the Chronicle as well, but I thought they did a really good job. And there were something like 30 volunteers. It was just really wonderful. So it was in honor of a young child, I guess, that passed away, and the mom had filed for adopt a highway, and turned out really nice. So.
Yeah, it's a great program, and again, we appreciate the public's input and all the hard work. If there's no other questions or comments, roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Copey,
Copy, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Praz.
Praz, yes. Motion carries. Item 5C, resolution approving the purchase of 2 2024 tandem axle truck cab and chassis for the Kane County Department of Transportation. Tom?
Yes, we are looking at any and every way that we can in order to acquire some of the trucks that we need for the near future. These are trucks that need to be replaced. One we're looking at potentially the sale of it in the future, and the other one we're going to utilize it for additional purposes. As you know, we continue to up the lane miles that we maintain and such. Historically, we've actually gotten rid of 5 trucks, so I want to emphasize that. So this is actually going to be replacing one of the second truck will be replacing one of the trucks that we got rid of a few years ago. So there's no new vehicles. And there's also, this is off the state bid. Typically, we don't do that. We're not 100% sure yet if this is going to work out the way that we're desirous, but we also know that there's a nationwide as well as potentially worldwide, from the articles we've read, a shortage of trucks. And so we're just trying to get ahead of the game. This is for 2024. And so we're basically looking at options in front of us. Hopefully this works. If it doesn't, you might not see it at administration or the county board, but we are allowed to acquire off the state bids. And so that's the way that we're looking at it this time. And staff is recommending approval.
These trucks look like they've actually exceeded our normal 15-year replacement by quite a bit, actually. But yeah, these trucks are used, they don't get a lot of miles, but they're used at slow speed, plowing snow under salt conditions are very hard on vehicles. So we get the maximum life out of them before we move forward. Questions or comments? Do I have a motion in a second? I don't think so. Motion in a second to purchase the trucks.
Move.
Dr. Iqbal,
Second.
Ms. Wodnicki seconds. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Call. I'm still not used to it. It's been 2 years.
Where's Shepro at when we need it?
Byrne, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Opie,
Opie, yes.
Wodnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Ross.
Braz, yes. Motion carries. So item 6, we have several resolutions pertaining to the Ride and Cane program. So we're going to turn it over to Jackie Forbes. This is, and we can actually take these 4 resolutions together. So she can give her report under item 6A, but we can take B, C, D, and E as one motion and vote. So Jackie?
Good morning. Thank you. I wanted to give you an update on the Ride and Cane program. We did launch it officially as a sponsor in January. We have 2 registered riders already, so that's good news. I also wanted to let you know that we have been working with the Workforce Development Division and the Sheriff's Office with some of their programs and how our Ride and Cane sponsorship can work directly with them and help folks get to work in our county. So it's a good news story I wanted to share with you. We will start bringing a report to you each month of our ridership and other data, but right now with just 2 riders, we didn't think it was appropriate to do that. So in the future, you'll be seeing that. I also made mention in the report about our transportation improvement plan. Last month, we brought a draft list of projects to you and asked for some input. A little bit later, we'll take a look at an updated list of those projects. And then I don't normally do this, but I wanted to call out something on our impact fee program report that we provide every month in the packet. If you notice from last year, I'm going to pull up the number here. Our fiscal year for 21, we collected $4.3 million in impact fees, and compared to other years, the year prior, 1.2 million, in fiscal year 19, 3.1 million. So we had a tremendous year, and I decided to take a look at years past and see in February's reports where we were standing. And this month, we have $606,000 that we've collected so far in December and January. In January of 2021, we had 78,000. In January of 2020, 112,000. 19 was 142,000 and 18 was 367,000. So I wanted to point out that 606,000 is quite a start to this year, and maybe we'll see another large year for collecting impact fees. So it's an important program that we have, and I wanted to just point that out as some interesting information and gave you some history on that. And that's my report for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll
Question,
move on.
Shepro?
Mr. Shepro, go ahead.
Yeah, is that just a timing issue, or is it in terms of the collections, or does it represent as substantial an increase in activity as it might indicate?
I'll take that real quick because we're seeing a significant increase of activity since 07, 08. Things have really dropped off, and of recent, that type of development activity across the county is starting to increase again. So that's a good sign, and our permitting section is also starting to see the impact because of all the work that they have to do.
And then I would also add that a lot of those projects are these big box warehouses, which are substantial dollar numbers and construction costs and fees paid and so forth. Anything else,
Thank you.
Mr. Shepro?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Caius?
Oh, Caius, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it sounds like the total amount of construction is significantly higher than it has been for like the past 10 or 12 years. And I would just like to point out that maybe it's time to reconsider the 50% discount that we offer, because on impact fees, because there doesn't seem to be an effect of a dampening effect on the amount of construction that we have, and doubly, these are projects that are going to produce a lot of traffic, a lot of truck traffic that is could be substantially. I'll defer this to you, Tom, but I'm guessing that these trucks are more abusive on the roads than the typical family automobile. So maybe we should look at some modification to the discount. is my point, in the near future, if not now.
Comments, Tom, or?
Yeah, it's a policy decision, so I want to be really careful in what I say. I do feel like it's a good sign that we're starting to see economic development moving again. And at the same time, this is a brand new ordinance that we've spent a lot of time, almost a year and a half, to get to this point. And it from the staff level, I'd like to at least wait a few months before we start looking at significant changes again, because it does take an effort to move it through the process. And so I hear what you're saying, Mr. Caius, and that's something that we could potentially look at some time in the future here.
Yeah, Mr. Caius, I would say that maybe we could put this on the agenda for spring as a discussion item. And then if the committee wants to move forward on increasing the fees, or I should say, restoring them to what they're already approved to be levied at, we could certainly start discussing it. And if the committee wants to move forward, we can move it through the committee system. Tom, additional comment?
Yeah, I was just going to also say that the difference between 50% and 100%, there's a reason for a portion of that. And that's because with all types of methodologies, there are aspects of the methodology not being perfect. And in the legal aspect of approaching the impact fee program, it was always presented to us that it's wise to have a certain percentage delta, that you might call it, that protects that chances of being off. We could never go up to 90 or 100%. It would have to be a portion of, and so that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay. Ms.
Understood.
Winicky,
Thank
did
you
have
very
a
much
comment?
for those comments.
I'll just add a quick comment. I'd like to support Chris Caius's comments.
Okay, so we will look at in the next couple months, putting it on the agenda of this committee as a discussion item. And then we can move on from there depending on how the committee feels.
Yeah, just thinking.
Mr. Chair? Bates, please.
Ms. Bates, go ahead.
I would go along with Mr. Caius as well. And I wanted to ask a question. In some communities, like Elwood, Illinois, where they're getting a lot of warehouses, there's a lot of concern about diesel smoke and pollution in the area. So we might need those extra impact fees for, is there a concern about that in Kane County? And would the impact fees possibly help some kind of mitigation for those diesel fumes?
Well, these funds have to be used for transportation improvements, so I'm not sure that we could use it for air quality. But I know there's concern about that, but I will also say, having been in that business, that a modern semi-truck produces very little fumes. Actually, in a smog situation, the air coming out of the exhaust pipe is cleaner than the air going in the air filter. Yeah, we have to use these for local transportation projects. That's the way the program works.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order from the chairman on that one. You're saying that the air coming in the air is coming in the intake into a diesel engine is dirtier than the air leaving the exhaust.
With a modern diesel engine, with the after treatment and the exhaust diesel fuel treatment in a smog, I said in a smog situation, the air coming out of the exhaust pipe can be cleaner than the air going in.
How about an everyday
Can I get-
situation?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it is.
How about the
but,
clean air in King County?
Okay.
Can I get I don't want to interrupt you. Just maybe you could cite a reference for me, if you would, Mr. Chairman. Thank
I
you.
could gladly provide that information.
Me
That'd be
too,
great.
please.
But so anyways, any other questions?
Yes, Shepro.
Mr. Shepro, go ahead.
Yeah, and one, I would agree with the chairman's observation as well as staff, but I had a question. What has happened or is happening to the price of road building materials. Everything else, I see so many projects that seem to be stopped dead for want of materials. And I'm wondering if that trend is extended to road building, asphalt, et cetera. If staff has anything to add to that.
The short answer is yes, especially asphalt is a petroleum-based product, so that's gone up substantially. Concrete's gone up, steel's gone up, and then lead times have gone up substantially. But Tom or Steve, is there anything you'd want to add?
I think your response is a good response. There's different aspects of those prices going up. We've also received in the last couple years some additional state and federal funds that also has an impact where some pricing goes up along with higher levels of capital. So there are costs going up at this point in time. I don't know, Steve, if you have anything else.
I guess just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, Shepro again. I would beware of unintended consequences, and I think to jump on an immediate revision to the discount policy could have a negative effect on economic development. And while there are obviously other considerations at play, I think that the appropriate response is to see how the new ordinance works. We've got inflation at 30 and 40-year highs. We've got road building materials increasing. If the goal is to reduce our collections to zero because construction stops, I think we have to really think through that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rickard.
Yeah, and just one other comment, and we'll have Mr. Jager look into this, but the statute's also cautious about making significant changes. There's actually wording in there. And so we'll look into how the statute reads. A lot of times development, there's a lot of effort in the planning stages and monies that are put into it that are reliant upon somewhat of a steady course. And so I just wanted to mention that there are cautious levels that the statute refers to that we have to meet if there are changes.
Okay, so staff will look into it, and we'll talk about putting this on the agenda in the next couple of meetings. Okay, anything else on planning and programming report? Seeing none, then we'll move back to Jackie. And again, we'll be taking items B, C, D, and E under item 6 together. The 4 resolutions all pertain to the Ride and Cane program. So Jackie, if you could maybe just kind of go through the 4 resolutions.
Sure. A couple of months ago, you saw 2 different versions of these, what are called technical service agreements. They are our agreement with the RTA for certain funding. The first 2 that you had were just for running the actual program. These are specific monies. They're called administration or mobility management that actually help us as a staff run the program through Kane County. So it's not for actually subsidizing rides, but instead helping us to run the program on the back end. So there are 4 different ones because, as you see, they have different phase numbers, and that has to do with the year that the funds were awarded. They were originally going to AID, the Association for Individual Development, and now that Kane County has taken that over, they will be monies that we are administering. So these 4 different agreements are pretty much exactly the same except for the funding amounts and the contract numbers. So we appreciate approval of these.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Jackie? If not, I'll take a motion in a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Caius, go ahead.
So these are, I'm sorry, thank you. So Jackie, this is, like a couple months ago, we passed some resolutions to institute this transition. These are just cleanup items, are they? Just a little more? is what
As we
you're
begin
saying?
to spend the money on these different contracts, we have other contracts that are kind of waiting for us to bring them forward with you from the RTA. We'll actually have some more in the future as we spend more money. So we started off with the 2 contracts that provided the funding to subsidize the rides. These are actually funding that will help subsidize our administrative costs and mobility management position at KDOT. So there's 4 different ones, just the way the RTA does it. You may, in the next month or 2, see another one of these for a different phase for additional funding. There's several that are outstanding. We just have been taking them as the RTA says we're ready to take them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Iqbal, second by
Caius,
Mr. Kenyon, seconds. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon. Yes. Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kopi,
Kopi, yes.
Woodnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Frost.
Raz, yes.
Passes.
Okay, item F, back to Tom for discussion of the draft 2022 transportation goals.
I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. Missions and goals, our mission statement to provide and maintain a safe and efficient transportation system while sustaining the county's vision and values. The 5 areas that you see listed there are the areas that we focus on, and I'm going to go through each of those real quick. Safety is job number 1 for us. We're going to continue to look at trying to reduce accidents. In Kane County, there's about 16,000 to 17,000 car accidents a year countywide, and we try to do our best efforts to improve safety along our roadways. Snow and ice removal to reduce public risk, maintenance patrols along our roads to inspect them, the county and township annual bridge inspections, evaluation and implementation of systematic safety enhancements. We're currently looking at different ways like reflectors in the pavement and such, pavement striping to enhance that safety. We try to prioritize. I'm not sure what just happened, but the screen went a little dark. There it goes. Prioritize and program safety projects. That's again, job number 1. Maintain traffic control and safety standards. And then we also, as I mentioned last month, started our traffic operations safety group to work with various stakeholders. Personal mobility, riding cane is a priority for us in 2022. Our bicycle pedestrian committee, our complete streets infrastructure, working on that. Update to the county's bike pedestrian plan and update to our bike map. Encouraging and implementing transit supportive land uses, and our ADA transition plan and our bike sharing program. Cooperative planning, we continue to work with King County's planning co-op. We also provide input into the region's policy and programming decisions at CMAP, provide staffing for the Kane-Kendall Council of Mayors, staff the bike ped, transit, and other committees with the municipalities, interagency coordination with various regional agencies, public involvement in the planning process, and we're going to be updating some of our website components. Quality of environment, protection of our natural resources. We try to do designs that do that, as well as best management practices. We look at trying to reduce congestion, improve air quality. We do context sensitive design solutions when working with various development that are going on in the county. We try to pursue residential screening, noise, and setbacks with municipalities and developers. A lot of times that's a effort that's very difficult, where a lot of times the developers aren't as concerned as we might be. I think most of you know, we quite often get requests for noise abatement and screening after the fact. So we try to hit it before the fact. And then administering our Adopt a Highway program. System efficiency. We try to provide many different quality services that you are all aware of. We look to continue to enhance the highway system with various capacity and engineering improvements. Our 5-year financial plan tries to prioritize those types of projects. Again, safety being our key projects. Prioritizing maintenance of the existing system. 90 to 95% of our expenditures goes into operations and maintenance. We don't have a lot of extra funds available for capital, and the ones that we do, we usually try to match it with federal and state funds. And then we investigate and implement various innovative technologies. And then we promote land use decisions that minimize trips and vehicle miles travel. Our budget goals, again, these are pretty standard. We explore funding alternatives. We look at matching the federal and state funds. We collect impact fees for our priority county projects. And we are also looking to update our permit regulations in regards to access, construction, utility, and truck. And then our staffing goals, you're all aware, I believe, of our transition planning. There's a number of senior management staff that we're kind of getting up there, and we're trying to do a lot of professional development, and we're also looking at customer service. There's a lot of new things that are occurring and things that we're trying to enhance: riding cane, impact fees, and then the toll bridge operations. And then the primary projects, this is just a listing. I'm not going to go through it, but this is a listing. In a second here, Jackie Forbes will be looking at the various projects that we're looking at putting into our 5-year financial plan. And that's all I have. This is a draft. We plan on finalizing as part of the TIP. This is something that Madam Chair has generally asked all departments to focus on, and that's the reason why it's come to your committee, so that if you have any comments or thoughts in regards to our 2022 goals, that you can have some input into it.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Questions or comments for Tom? Mr. Martin?
Maybe they could help address the elderly staff by putting oatmeal and prunes in the vending machines.
Duly noted. The problem isn't so much their age, it's just their time in the job. We've got about 5 people that are all very close in term. But understood. Ms. Bates, did you have a question?
Yes,
Comment?
so does this include any of those sound walls, such as on Orchard?
Traditionally, the KDOT does not pursue sound barrier projects.
Well, this is a special case, so with special agreements with the city of Aurora.
The tip, and this is just the goals. Our goal is to make sure it's done right when development's occurring. Because sound abatement is actually, or noise abatement is actually just as expensive as building roads. It's very expensive, and the county doesn't have the revenue in order to do noise abatement. And Orchard Road is a different animal, and it is part of our TIP, the overall planning, where the county is going to be paying a portion of improvement that is mostly funded with state funds and the city of Aurora. We have our local match that's included as part of that within the transportation improvement program.
And we did do I believe we did move forward with that fence replacement with partnership with City of Aurora along Orchard.
We are moving forward. It will be closer to more of a wall/noise abatement project, and that improvement is in the draft TIP, as well as the City of Aurora just submitted to us a draft agreement to within the last week or two to continue to move that project forward.
And that's a City of Aurora project, though.
It's a City of Aurora project, yes. We will be paying a portion of it.
Okay, we're moving forward. Thank you.
Ms. Walnicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the municipalities have authority over approving the residential developments or commercial developments. But if they're along our roads, is there a way we can work with them to maybe widen the easement so that we don't have the problem afterward of trying to fix the sound of the cars going by?
We attempt that in the presentation for an access control discussion in a little bit. I'll hit some of that, but for the last 35 years, the county board has directed staff to address a number of issues through access control. It's the about the only way that we're actually able to kind of step into the planning process. And so these intergovernmental agreements that are created, which are throughout the county, primarily on the freeway system, but even on some county highways, are very significant in making sure that the transportation planning efforts are done appropriately and done well in regards to public safety, as well as addressing future public concerns.
You know, we have a great opportunity right now because we can, before Kane County gets developed and, you know, similar to DuPage or whatever, we have the opportunity to kind of set what we want to see along our roads and catch it before it's too late, I guess.
And we do as best we can.
Mhm.
Again, a lot of times economic development is driving that, and we have to do a good job in trying to push some of those ideas forward. The protection of right-of-way, the protection of areas for stormwater management, access control for safety. All of those, I think there's about 8 different elements that we focus on in the intergovernmental agreements. We approve of full access.
Yeah, once again, it's getting our 2040 development plan out there, a comprehensive plan, and our 2050 transportation plan, and getting that out there to all the municipalities so they know the direction we're going in.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on item F? That was a discussion item, so there really is no vote. We will move forward with that and come back with the final draft. Keep in
Kopi,
mind, Kopi, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps I didn't quite follow the discussion completely, and correct me if I'm wrong. We were discussing about spending money on a sound barrier on Orchard Road. Is that correct? And if it's not, then stop me anytime. But I have to.
I'll stop you right there. Yeah, the discussion was about sound barrier walls, and my statement in KDOT policy is that we don't pursue sound barrier walls, but we are partnering with Aurora, who happens to have a project they're doing along Orchard, and they're the lead on that does have some sound barrier walls.
Okay, very well. I was going to voice my dissent on that concept, but thank you very much. And the reason for that was I have to dig in on the congestion issues up in my district, up in District 9, I should say, and I'd like to voice those concerns at any opportunity that I can. But thank you for the time. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Kobe. Anything else on transportation goals? And I would ask you to just note that the very first transportation goal is safety. Item G, draft project list for 2022-26 Transportation Improvement Program. We'll move back to Jackie Forbes for just explanation of that.
Sure. So this is an updated table from the one we showed you last month. We did reach out to a variety of stakeholders and ask for new ideas for projects, and they're in a box now called New Projects. It's the last section on there. So we'll be working with our budget and allocating funds because our 5-year program is fiscally constrained. So how are we going to pay for these projects that we have in here? So that's our next steps, but we are happy to have added several projects to the program that we're proposing. We do have a various traffic operational enhancements in there because we received several ideas that were related to that topic, and we thought it would make sense to kind of put them together as a various, but we'll look at different projects individually.
Okay, and then you'll be coming back to us with a final version of this.
Yeah, along with the financial information to go along with it.
Questions or comments on item G? Tom, additional comments?
Yeah, just one more comment. It's in regards to our current tip. I think it's important to let you all know that we have a funding shortfall of about 190 million in that current tip. So we're very careful with adding additional projects. Most of these projects that you see on here that are not new projects or existing projects are not fully funded. And we continue to seek after state and federal funds. So it's important that you know that the financial tip that you see, you'll see a lot of these projects in the multi-year. So they're not something that happen overnight. It takes time is a phrase we use quite often. It's generally a 10 to 20 year planning horizon for a lot of major projects.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee? Okay, if not, again, discussion item only, so we'll move on to permitting report. Tom?
You have the report. I have nothing to add at this time unless there's any questions.
Okay, any questions on the permitting report? If not, if you do have some, contact Tom on that. Item 7B, discussion. This is reference to staff recommendation regarding access requests by the city of St. Charles. As you know, we've had a contingent from St. Charles visit us 3 previous meetings, and we have a contingent here today. So welcome. Thanks for taking the time to be here. The issue has to do with a right in, right out request off Randall Road at the northwest corner of Randall and Route 64 or Main Street, St. Charles. You know, I guess we'll open the discussion, but I would just like to, you know, say that I hope that the committee did look at the recommendations that the staff included in the agenda packet, and I forwarded to you yesterday. Staff seems to think it is possible, even though, you know, again, it violates our standards, but it is possible to look at a possible right in on the southbound lane there, but they've been pretty adamant about not supporting a right out option at that intersection. Again, it violates precedents and would be setting a new precedent. This deviates from, you know, standard highway design standards that we utilize. You know, accidents would increase. And, you know, again, we had a long-term IGA that was very specific that we worked with St. Charles on for this property. The county has made a substantial investment in right-of-way purchase along there from the former Hahn property. And, you know, my personal feeling is I want to support staff and, you know, adhere to our policies and precedents and goals, but I'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman Shepro?
Mr. Shepro, go ahead.
Yeah, perhaps you or staff could clarify what is exactly the status of the request by the city. My understanding is there has been no formal application for any access points at this juncture. And I understand there was a letter written with respect to the intergovernmental agreement, but what is the legal status of that? Is there anything actually pending?
Well, the IGA still stands. It's been there for quite a while, and it had to do with development of that corner as well as to the north and the new intersection and the 2 car dealerships that have gone in there. So that's been a standing IGA for quite some time. The current status is that St. Charles has asked us to discuss this. So there has been no, I guess I would say, no paper request or no permits filled out. They do have a party that's interested in putting a gas station on that corner. And so St. Charles' goals are to talk to us about deviations from our standards to help allow that gas station to be built. So if we were to do this, they could come in then with a building permit and all the related permits for KDOT for access and so forth. So I guess it's formal in the sense that they've been here 3 times. I consider it a formal request for discussion, but you know, to that end, that's where we are today.
Just to follow up, so if I understand it, if someone were to apply for an access at this juncture, the response would be there's an intergovernmental agreement in place that would prevent that from being granted. So that the way to proceed, if there is going to be further action, would be that the county would have to agree to amend the intergovernmental agreement.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
And you know, the city or the applicant for the gas station would also submit much more detailed plans and work with staff and then come back to us for a change with the IGA and an approval of a lane configuration that everybody agrees on. Other questions or comments? Dr. Iqbal?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree with the staff that in the present configuration, this intersection would not be safe to add this right out. However, the city last time stated that it needs to improve. And I suggest that if it's improved properly, particularly downstream, a lane need to be added. I think that's one of the things. There are 4 lanes on the upstream side and 3 on the downstream. So there would be weaving, undoubtedly. And if that issue is addressed, I believe we should go ahead and agree with the right out. But how much does it cost? Who pays for it? That's a study that needs to be done.
Okay. Yeah, I guess with 3 visits from the city, 4 being today, we really haven't received any alternatives. It's been, we want to ride in, ride out. And I haven't seen any, and I don't think staff has seen any alternates or proposals or anything like that. Mr. Martin?
Kind of continuing Mo's thought, I have a bent towards not wanting to see vacant property and unused property. And I look at this piece and I want to see it develop, but I think the technical legal term is throw us a bone. Tell us how some of these issues, how this issue is going to be addressed, because these standards are not created by Kane County, and there was no over the life of this intergovernmental agreement, there's no apparent integration of this property into the traffic flow within that subdivision. Everything was developed, and there's 2 new car dealers there, and everything was done. And I'm sure they didn't want to have a frontage road passing in front of or through their car lot. But, we didn't create the problem. We entered into an agreement that addressed what the city and developers said that they needed at that point in time. And if it's going to change, for example, I don't know if that is that a telephone facility? That's
a
the
switching center of some sort.
switching center. Can that be relocated and create some kind of flexibility? I don't know, but just something to show us that there's legitimacy to the concern and that it's going to be addressed seems to me to be appropriate. And I'm favorable to an element of leniency because I don't like to see vacant property. It's not healthy for numerous reasons. But I'd like to see some kind of a submission that says this is what we're going to do so we can evaluate the degree to which we're applying leniency. I don't want to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it and then look at the engineering afterwards. If in fact, if most proposition is viable, let's see it. I mean, if some of this property's value is lost to accommodate this issue, my answer would be over the last 18 or 20 years, whatever, there's been an immense amount of value created in the intersection to the north, the 2 luxury car dealerships that have been put there, the massive opening of what would otherwise be basically landlocked property to the west. I mean, it's not, the world at that intersection has received some fairly significant benefits. And this lot, anybody that would have looked at it 20 years ago would know that this lot was going to be an issue, even with the interior plan. So I just would like to see somebody say this is how we're going to try to deal with it, and I don't know what the solution is. I'm not announcing I'm an engineer, but just everybody agreed to a course of action, and really nothing has changed. It's not like the market has changed. It's just simply that it was determined, and economically probably correctly, that this lot was difficult to integrate into the rest of the subdivision. Well, so let's have somebody offer us some way to address what I consider to be legitimate concerns.
I understand what you're saying. You know, if you look at the IGA and the history of the IGA, exactly what you said, the access and the value and all that was drawn north to the new intersection, and that would provide access. And there was going to be for lack of a better word, a frontage road. It was actually in the back, but the frontage road that would access this lot. But I think the IGA clearly kind of acknowledged that the access and value of this lot would be somewhat diminished in exchange for all the improvements to the north. I have talked to staff because, you know, the big concern about a right out, one of the concerns is that somebody would turn right out and want to immediately cross 3 lanes and make a left turn on the Main Street eastbound. And so we talked about a barrier wall there that would just keep them in the 1 lane. But, you know, that's something that doesn't exist anywhere else in our system, anywhere. And it really affects snow removal operations. And it would be, every time there's a snowfall, there'd be an asterisk on our maintenance crew to go over and deal with the barrier wall. So that was never really, it was discussed, but never really thought as a viable option. So we have looked at them, but again, we have not received anything.
Okay,
On record.
I think the important thing here is to look at whatever opportunities might be out there rather than just going directly to a right out. Earlier, we mentioned how the economy's kind of been really slow in the last 12, 13, 14 years. And we have had in the past, we've had at least one that I can recall, BP Amoco came in and said, we can live with the right in only. There might have been a second gas station. I'd have to research all my files to find that out, but I know BP Amoco did and said, we don't need a right out, we just want a right in. And staff even pulled together a recommendation supporting that with appropriate design. But at the time, the county board was really not wanting to support the right in, right out at all. I mean, it was very anti the county board at the time, right in, right out. So when staff brought forward the right in only that BP Amoco offered up, the county board process said no to it. So we've tried to, I think historically, I put a little bit of information in the big overview letter, but this whole frontage along Randall Road from the railroad track down to 64, when we purchased the right of way, right before we purchased it, it was only owned by one property owner. We were taking down the buildings. We had an agreement for a right in, right out, only 2 of them along the frontage. One here and one at the Woodward Drive location. And then about a year and a half later, or a year or so later, the city of St. Charles said, well, let's look at a master plan here. Let's look at a full access point. The county board has worked really well in order to improve the economic development of this entire frontage. The only thing that the county board asked for in exchange was to start eliminating some of these access points that are in what they call the functional area of the intersection. That's what the county board requested. And so this property here was one of those properties, as well as some of the properties on the east side. And the city of St. Charles said, we'll work with you to look at, even on the east side, developing internal circulation so we can improve the safety of this area. Randall Road and Illinois 64 have some of the higher accident numbers. Part of that's because of the volume of traffic. Part of that's because of some of the old stuff design-wise that occurred. There's, I put in here a 5-year estimate of accidents. We actually track accident data along various roadways through IDOT. And there are a number of access points that cause tremendous problems on Route 64, as well as on Randall Road. When we did this project, it was a safety project, and that safety project actually reduced the accidents on Randall Road anywhere, depending on where you're looking, by 60 to 80%. So safety is very important to us. It is something that we will continue at the staff level to highly, highly discourage. Our answer will always be no to a write out at this location. Again, I think that you can look at some types of planning variances to look at write in at this location, and some design features to help that write in function adequately, even though it's a variance. And then this, you can see the easements that were created as part of the planning process to try to either look at making those easements functional, like was committed to in the beginning through the intergovernmental agreement, or to potentially replan and relocate those easements so that there's another opportunity along properties that aren't developed yet in order to look at access to Woodward. You go up and down Randall Road, Kirk Road, Orchard, these types of cross-access easements are the standard. This access point at this location at 300 feet from 64, I think there's only 2 in the entire county that close to the intersection. We had an opportunity for good planning, good engineering, and I think we need to explore opportunities of a write-in only or additional planning before we even go towards a write-in, write-out.
Additional comments or questions? Mr. Wallace?
Chairman.
Mr. Wallace first, then Mr. Caius.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a member of this committee, but I would like to just ask a question. Oh, I'm sorry, not a member of this committee, but I would like to ask a question. I'm wondering if staff has, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the safety issues, but has there been a traffic study that's been reviewed? I know that there's been one that was prepared in 2020. I'm wondering if staff reviewed that.
Staff has reviewed that, and even the city's traffic engineer reviewed it and said there was a safety concern. It is, AASHTO standards are the national standards that are accepted for that type of spacing, and that's kind of where we stand as far as trying to achieve those standards. Or if there's a variance, we try to make sure that that variance is in general compliance to that spacing criteria.
Thank you. And if I could make a further comment, I feel that there are 2 different components here. We have the traffic component, but we also have a development component. And I think that the city's biggest concern is the development component, that we have a lot here that has not been effectively developed. And essentially with these restrictions in place, there really is no way that it ever will be. So looking at it strictly from the traffic side, I think is just looking at one perspective of it. I think that it would be effective to also look at it from the development side and talk about orderly development, talk about impact on neighboring properties, on the good of the community, et cetera. Because those are all factors that have to be taken into account here as well. I think that if you look at it strictly from a safety standpoint, there would be no entrances in or out of Randall Road anywhere, because they simply create an unsafe situation when you have cars that are entering or exiting any roadway. So I think that there is another concern here, and maybe that's something that should be brought up with the development committee.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I have discussed this at previous meetings that, you know, on the opposite corner, there's a title company. I think that business could probably do very well on this lot with a write-in only. But we're talking about a high traffic gas station. It's going to have a constant flow all day and into the night of cars coming in and out of there. So yeah, the uses will greatly affect what could be put on that corner. But again, we're the transportation committee. We're being asked to set aside safety, to set aside standards, design standards and precedent. And there's no doubt that the accident rate will go up with a ride out. So the question is, does the King County Transportation Committee want to accept a certain number of accidents and unknown amount of injuries. That's my personal opinion as one board member. Mr. Caius, you had a comment, I believe?
Well, yes, sir, thank you. And I certainly appreciate the fervor with St. Charles is presenting this to us. I too would like to see something of value with that particular plot on that corner. I see it empty, but I am going to say that I'm deferring to the safety aspect, as that is our number one concern. I think it's ingenuous to say that to compare a busy intersection like this to all of Randall Road and saying no access would be the best thing to do. I know that in my area, I have already spoken with a gas station up in Carpentersville who had a similar type of situation, not exact, of course, but it was at that point I was presented with the options very similar to this, safety versus the right in, right out. And I think that we deny our citizens the proper safety if we go against the rules that that KDOT has adopted. And so I would be in favor of, would be not in favor of the right in, right out as it stands right now, and still be looking open to the right in at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caius. Additional comments or questions from the committee?
Shepro?
Mr. Shepro, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I find myself agreeing with most of the comments that have been made, both pro and con, but I go back to what you said, Mr. Chairman, when we were talking about the plan for transportation plan earlier, and you said number one item is safety. And I guess it seems to me that this discussion is taking place in somewhat of a vacuum in that if the committee were just to recommend or that we waive the provision or change the provision in the intergovernmental agreement, we don't know what we're changing it to do. I think staff has made it pretty clear that they do not believe that there would ever be circumstances that would suggest that we would do right in, right out. And while I understand that they are willing to investigate alternatives, it seems to me that that's a lot of work by staff with no indication that the developer or proposed developer is interested in anything other than 100%. So I guess I go back to Mr. Martin's question or comments. I think that for this to go any further, I would expect that we would want to see a specific plan and answers to some of the specific concerns that have been voiced by our staff.
Okay, does that conclude your comment?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional comments or questions from the committee? From without the committee?
Mr. Chairman Allen,
Ms. Allen, go ahead.
from outside the committee, I just wanted to share an anecdote. You know, in Elgin, we have really old businesses and really old commercial and retail mixed in with residential. And you know that Route 31 is a major north-south conduit on the west side of Elgin. Can I just say that some of those businesses that are on Route 31 have the problem that people can only enter only right in, but what happens is that then you leave the property and you basically go around the block. If you've entered the business driving south and you want to continue driving south, what you do is you leave and you go west for about a block, and then you go north for a block or two, and then you go east for a block, and you get back into the stream of traffic on Route 31. Now, that is teaching an old dog a new trick, but it's pretty usual for us to do that in using our businesses on Route 31, which is such a busy street. And everybody does it. It's not a big deal. You just have to do it once and then you realize how well it works. So that may be an answer here for people to go west to Barbara and up to Woodward and back onto Randall in either direction that they want. Just wanted to say that it's something that does work. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Any additional comments from the committee or other board members?
Or beyond, Davis.
Mr. Davis, go ahead.
Hi. I guess I'll start with a couple of compliments. We enjoy having Carl and Tom, and I think they're as good as it gets. And their roles here are clear. They view this from the perspective of transportation with safety as the number one goal and concern. And they're doing that. They consistently do that. And Mr. Chairman, as the transportation chair, I think you're fulfilling your role admirably in supporting those efforts. And so those roles are clear and the presentation is clear. The points of Mr. Martin and Mr. Wallace, though, are very important, and we have to look beyond that a little bit and remember that the ultimate judgment or policy, goes beyond those initial roles, as I've just described. And it's a tricky business. When we start talking about precedent, immediately south, just across Route 64 is a situation that is exactly as being described here. And when the intersection improvements happened some years ago, we had a wonderful result. The accident rates have gone down and continued to stay down, even though those situations exist on the other 3/4 of this intersection. So I do hope that we keep that perspective and do everything we can to keep an open mind to finding a way to develop this property or let it be developed. Safety will always be a concern and a goal, but it has to be blended with the other economic realities that go with this. And I'm hopeful that today, before we're finished, we'll hear some more from the St. Charles contingent that's there on addressing some of these compromises or plans, as Mr. Martin alluded to.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Did I hear Ms. Bates?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. From outside the committee, I want to just reiterate that Chrysler Motor Company has declared that it will be all electric by 2028, which is very soon from now. And does it make sense to be building these giant gas stations in light of the fact that so many cars are going to be electric very soon? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Additional comments or questions from the board or committee?
Copey, please.
Mr. Copey, go ahead.
Thank you. In my opinion, the entire debate in regards to on the side of approving the development without the improvement or without the safety aspects, it all boils down to a little bit of convenience for someone wanting to come in there and get gas, whereas they wouldn't be able to get gas at that occasion anyway. So there is a massive improvement that there'd be availability to gas, one, and it would satisfy the need and the economic development, and to relinquish a posture of safety in that intersection on behalf of those slight conveniences, I don't think would be a good compromise for either party. The taxpayers, two, the people, the safety of the people using the road, and three, the actual users of the gas. If the people want gas, they can build their gas station, but the people that need safety, we can offer safety also. this isn't just a one-way street. Everybody gets a little out of, if we follow the road department's recommendations. Everybody gets something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copey. Additional questions or comments? Anybody? Okay, seeing none, I guess just to summarize, we've welcomed St. Charles now to us 3 times for a presentation. And I did tell them that today was mostly for our discussion internally, and that we may or may not have had some questions for them. At this point, I'd just soon keep it internal to the committee. There is no action to be taken today. And I think what I'd like to do is just sort of end it by, and please, members of the committee, correct me if I'm speaking for somebody, but I would say in general, the consensus is that, this committee supports the staff recommendation in broad strokes. A gas station may not be the most appropriate use on that corner, but we would support other uses. And we would be open to a write-in, and we are open for St. Charles to keep a dialogue going with staff, KDOT staff, and let us know if you want to keep proceeding down this line of thought. But our feeling is that a gas station may be too high volume of a use on that corner. But we wouldn't oppose it, but we would oppose the right out. Is that a fair summary? Is there anybody who would not agree with that on the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I will add that both the KDOT and the City of St. Charles, if they can discuss how to improve the intersection to accommodate this right out, that would be great.
Yeah, if there's anything we can do, and I think we've shown that we are open, we continue to be open, but feel very strongly against the right out, but are willing to work with any alternative ideas that may come along. So that ends the discussion at this point. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8. This is traffic operations report. Back to Tom.
You have the report. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Okay, if you have any questions or comments on the report, give Tom a call. We move on to item 9, over to Steve for project implementation report.
Nothing to add on the IMP report. So unless there's questions, we only have one photo. This is showing some of the work that's being done even over the winter on our C4 contract, showing the roadside toll building foundation bottom right and gantry foundation bottom left and such in preparation for that.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve on the IMP report? If not, item 9B, back to Steve, a resolution approving an amendment to the Phase 3 Construction Engineering Services Agreement. This is for Route 25 near Sandbloom and so forth, Long Meadow Parkway. Steve?
This item, IDOT had deleted the lead waste contaminated soil excavation and disposal item from their contract, as I've mentioned last fall. And we're going to then locally let 2 contracts. This is for the Phase 3 observation of those 2 contracts. We have over $814,000 still unused under our original Phase 3 engineering contract. And we need an additional $360,000 more. Staff negotiated with Alfred Benish to oversee these 2 contracts, complete confirmation soil borings and testing once we've done the excavation, and coordinate the soil cleanup with the IEPA, kind of wash our hands of this one at the end of that work. So staff recommends approval of this amendment in the appropriation.
Okay, I need a motion and a second for this.
Kenyon would move.
Moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Dr. Iqbal. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, no.
Copey,
Copy, yes.
Wodnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Braz.
Braz, yes. Motion carries. Last resolution approving a contract for construction for Long Meadow Parkway, Section C2A again. Steve, could you explain it?
This one, as you noticed, has blanks in it. This contract is out for bid right now. Contractors are reviewing the contract plans. Bid opening is scheduled for March 1st, which is the day before executive. In order to take advantage of our construction windows that we have in the Chicagoland area for 2022, staff is recommending that committee consider moving this forward for today. March 1st, we'll open bids. And if we have a low bid that staff is comfortable recommending, we'll share that information right before executive, which is on March 2nd for consideration. That saves us 30 days then to an extra 30 days instead of waiting the following month. This contract is for that soil cleanup I just mentioned. And the following month, we'll be putting out to bid also the paving contract that would occur once the soil has been removed and disposed of properly.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I need a motion and a second on this.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Iqbal.
Berman, second.
Second by Mr. Berman. Discussion. Just so the committee knows, Long Meadow is substantially complete or virtually complete, except for this one section, and there was known lead contamination. This is the site where it used to be an asphalt plant and a construction dumping site. So this problem was known. There was somewhat of a delay. The state was actually overseeing this portion of the cleanup, and there was some value engineering recommendations by a couple of the bidders that did not pan out. So it resulted in a somewhat of a delay. So again, we're kind of anxious, even though it's only February, staff's already well into the late summer and scheduling and getting something like this going. So we're asking you to approve this with the amounts to be determined and brought back to executive so that we can keep moving this forward. But it's a substantial amount, but it was anticipated and provided for in the budget. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, no.
Copy,
Copy, yes.
Wodnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Braz.
Raj, yes. Item 10, I need ask for a motion, a second to place the various reports on file from today. Moved by Dr. Iqbal, second by
Berman,
Mr. Berman. Roll call.
Berman,
yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Copy,
Copy, yes.
Wodnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Braz.
Raj, yes. Public comment. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Anybody online? Hearing none, I'll take a motion in a second to adjourn.
Kenyon moves to adjourn.
Mr. Kenyon moves to adjourn.
Iqbal, second.
Dr. Iqbal seconds. Roll call, please.